For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Shannon Durehove. Mcebisi Ndletyana joins me to discuss the report Patronage Politics Divides Us about poverty, patronage and inequality in South Africa. Your report, Patronage Politics Divides Us, is a study of poverty, patronage and inequality in South Africa. Which of the findings most surprised you and why?
Well, I think it's the extent to which people engage in patronage. One of the good things about our study is that it's fieldwork based, so you get to observe and see how people live. In this instance, for instance, you would have councillors arranging meetings, and because these meetings would be arranged towards nomination process for the ANC local government, they would then call people whom they know that those people would nominate their names for candidates in the local government elections. So pretty much when they arrange these meetings, they know who to invite and who not to invite. So if their supporters are not there at the meetings, they would delay the meetings. They would intentionally sabotage the meetings. An ANC councillor makes the point of nurturing a constituency within the ward. And this is a constituency that he will service in terms of giving patronage to, and in return the constituency votes for him for the nomination process. So that level of organization, that level of determination was quite revealing, was quite surprising, because you don't expect these things to be so developed. You hear about the reports, but you don't think this is a systematic, well-developed, entrenched phenomenon within our politics, but it turns out it was, or it is at least.
How exactly would you define the problem of patronage in politics?
You see, every political party has to maintain its support on the basis of patronage. You might not have resources to pay people salaries on day-to-day basis. But you need them to volunteer for party work anyway, right? So ostensibly there is a promise of sorts, a quid pro quo of sorts, that you campaign, you do this, and in return you get this, you get that. So it's an old historical phenomenon. Every party practices that. But the problem is when you exclude other people, as in the public works project that I was talking about, and also if you then employ people into positions for which they are not qualified. So that level of patronage is bad. Societies are what they are, and they are product of their own dynamics. You can't say things ought to be like this as if you can divine them into existence. Societies, nasty things happen in society. So we avoided making moral judgment, and the reason I'm saying this is because poor people use their support to get something from the politicians. They give their support, political support, in return for these jobs that they get. Councillors, on the other hand, some of them who issue out tenders, they give them to business people in return for 10% kickbacks. So it's bad on the one side and good on the other side. Good to the extent that for poor people who have nothing else to live off, they are guaranteed that if I pledge my support to Anna, I will certainly get a job. I will get something in return.
Your report reveals that local government is the least trusted of all spheres of government. Why is this, and how can it be changed?
You see, what councillors for some reason don't understand, and most people don't quite appreciate this, is that local government is the face of government, it's the face of the state. It's the face of the state, and poor people interact with that face a lot more than you and I. It is the least trusted by communities because of the shambolic manner in which councillors carry themselves. And also because part of the problem which we highlight is that some of the councillors are not highly educated. So one, they don't prepare properly for meetings. They don't read the reports. They don't scrutinize performance agreements of managers or financial statements. So, half of them, or if not more, have no clue what's going on within their own council. So they can't even account.
What insight did Mistra gain into how patronage politics contributes to some of the problems experienced in South Africa generally and in local government specifically?
Corruption and political abuse is something that will always be there, I'm afraid. Not all of us are angels. But then is to understand, one, the impact of that and evaluate the impact thereof as well. One, we got to understand the ways in which people engage in patronage. As I was saying earlier, local people constituting themselves into a particular constituency for a certain politician against another rival within the party, within the ANC. And they use that support to get benefits from the councillor. And the impact, obviously, is that it divides the community. And that division is not good, especially for collective action within the community. And it also degenerates into nepotism, that people now become divided along ethnic or familial identities. So this is the particular insight that one got from this, how it manifests itself and what is the impact, and is it inevitable? I'm afraid it is inevitable.
How does patronage politics affect the scourge of poverty and inequality in South Africa?
Well, the one negative way it does this is that with kickbacks, if a business person gets a tender to build a road or build houses, in some cases, some of these business people are not quite qualified. They are not competent to build this, whatever they are meant to build. What then happens is that in most cases we have two things happening, if not three. One is that whatever they build is of poor quality. Then you end up seeking more money to rectify, or you demolish the entire structure and you build something else altogether. So this is wasteful expenditure. Or in another instance, you have poor budgeting of how much the project or the development will cost. Then as the project goes on, they realize that they must have under-budgeted, partly because the 10% went to the councillor, so there's shortage of funds. So a project that was meant to cost about 10 million ended up costing 50 million rand. And this is money taken from elsewhere. So the services, the quality of services is shabby. And secondly, you're taking resources elsewhere where they could have been spent meaningfully. So it ultimately then impacts on the quality of service, especially for poor people.
What was the most surprising finding in the relationship between councillors, business interests, and local party organizations?
Business people too engage in patronage. And, they can be fancy about it and sophisticated, but ultimately it's the same thing. If you look at our politics especially, there's this pretense that money is not influential in settling political races in South Africa, but it does. You need money. Increasingly, our elections are costing more and more money. But it's quite interesting, though, how it works within the ruling party itself. We have some kind of informal primaries in South Africa that no one wants to talk about. The US, they have a primary system. Party candidates compete against each other for the same nomination. We have that here within the ANC. Every candidate has his or her own backer with lots of money. You've had allegations of conference where people show up with bags full with money. And these are business people. Poor people don't have bags full of money. These are business people, obviously, right? And you ask yourself, well, of course, that they are not doing that free of charge. there's an expectation of some gains once the person goes into office. I mean, here in South Africa, we've had all sorts of allegations of, say, the Gupta family, for instance, that is apparently very close to the President of the Republic. And at some point, cabinet appointees were told by the Gupta family that, oh, by the way, you've been appointed to cabinet. So these fellows know cabinet decisions even before people know. So that's the extent of the influence of money on our politics, and it's not only confined to the first family or the first citizen, but it's something that is prevalent throughout our society.
What survivalist strategies do the poor adopt to maneuver the patronage minefield? What is government doing to reduce this burden?
The poor have to live, and you use whatever resources are at your disposal. But they are not accepting that patronage is an inevitable part of life about which they can do nothing. But they are fighting back. Yes, you have a set of people who go along, who give of their support in return for material gains. But you also have instances where people, for instance, are insisting on deciding among themselves who should be employed at a particular public works project. Because what normally happens is that with a new project coming up, a councillor has to go around looking who to appoint to this thing. In one instance, the councillor would do that completely unrestrained by whatever people are saying. But in Mhlonhlo, what people have decided is they would choose who amongst them should be employed, and they make that decisions on the basis of need. If in your family no one works, no one has been working for years, if the situation is extremely dire, then they prioritize you. So they don't give you employment on the basis of who you support, but on the basis of their deprivation, social deprivation. People are beginning to come up with ways to counter the impact of patronage, even though others have accepted it. But there's a greater appreciation that it's not working quite well for communities. I'm not sure if government, the specific things that government can implement which will instantly eliminate it. But you do want to create a clean political system, more compliance with rules. So we need to build intolerance for violations of rules, and hold people to act in accordance with the law, and create an atmosphere that makes even unthinkable to break away from the rule. So if we can do that, then we will have done something towards reducing the impact of patronage in our politics. And again, disclosing, as I was saying earlier, disclosing the identity of donors to parties, and punishing wrongdoers as well. One of the greatest or major problems we have in this country is that we have politicians who are accused. Some of them are even proven of having stolen something. You have an instance of an MEC here in Gauteng who abused an official credit card, buying all sorts of things. Yes, they got rid of that person as an MEC, but they then retained him as a member of the legislature, provincial legislature. So one can't quite understand the logic. Is that you're saying the impropriety is so severe that this person cannot serve in government, but he's still good enough to serve as a representative in a provincial government. So where do you draw the line? And this person is now a national executive member of the ruling party. So where is exemplary leadership? So it's about sending out a message that certain things society will not tolerate. And if you don't send that message, then you are giving some signs that what you are doing is somewhat acceptable.
Finally, what recommendations does Mistra put forward to solve these problems?
We need to strengthen our institutions. Admittedly, we have a problem in that we come from an informal organizations, people who were in politics together, who suffered a lot together, who went to prison together. So there are strong personal bonds amongst comrades. And when they assume official positions, then it becomes difficult all of a sudden to turn cold and formal towards colleagues. It's a difficult, admittedly, it's a difficult transition for one to undergo. But we need to encourage that transition. And we haven't done a good job of encouraging it. Vusi Pikoli, who's one of the prominent officials of the ANC, had done exactly that. You know, he was a director of the NPA, meant to uphold the law, which is exactly what he's been doing. So happens that those who are in breach of the law are his comrades. And the ANC hasn't done a good job of encouraging individuals like him. Instead, he has been ostracized. What has subsequently happened then is that institutions that are meant to be independent and vibrant are now in a state of paralysis. The NPA, you know, all sorts of other institutions that are meant to fight corruption. The police are at loggerheads with each other. You have people whose appointment you can't explain. Just recently, the NPA has brought in someone. No one knows about this person, and he's supposed to be the head of a national prosecution authority. So then you ask yourself, what is the purpose of this person? Surely, if they wanted this institution to function optimally and effectively, then they would have brought the best candidates. And best candidates are oftentimes known, right? You can't be best and no one knows you. I mean, it's absurd, right? So we need to strengthen the effectiveness of institution by appointing the best amongst ourselves. We need to punish people when they've been found to have done something wrong, and we need to be open in our society about who funds who, to eliminate the influence of money, because with the more we tolerate the influence of money, the likelier it is that will be run by a faction. That government will only be accountable to a certain faction of individuals, and who might even have privileges that they are not supposed to have, like landing at the Waterkloof airport.
That was Mcebisi Ndletyana speaking about poverty, patronage and inequality in South Africa.